The Hornets prepare for a 5-game homestand while sitting on a 2-game winning streak. Head coach James Borrego sits down with the guys to discuss his team's play and the importance of these next 5 games. This is the Hornets.com Coaches Show.
Welcome to the Hornets.com Coaches Show. I'm Matt Rochinski, joined by Chris Kroger. Chris, welcome back. Made it through Snowmageddon. Got home safely from New York. Everything's all good at the house. You got power, everything?
Yeah, everything's fine. It's not often you'd say you're going to go to New York City to get some better weather, but that's exactly. It felt like spring in New York compared to when we left on Charlotte, so we're good.
Well, we're happy to have you back, and you brought back with you another win.
Yeah, and it's good. I'll say this, I think you've looked at the Hornets on the road this year, and I think generally speaking, they've performed well. They've been in almost every single road game they've been in, but Coach was telling me on Sunday before the game, we think we've been a good road team, but the record would maybe indicate otherwise because the Hornets had lost 4 in a row. The Hornets had dropped 4 straight road games after a 3-4 start on the road. So what's the old Bill Parcells adage, right? You are what your record says you are. At a certain point, you got to win some of these games. And I think the ones that really are the ones you look back and think, man, what could have been? Chicago, Atlanta, Cleveland, all on the road, all to end road trips too, where maybe the Hornets started to look ahead a little bit. And so you looked at New York, 8-19 going into that game on Sunday. And then as much as you could say this in the NBA, you got to win that game. And they found a way to win that game. And they did it quite convincingly. It really was never in question after the opening quarter on Sunday.
And it was nice to see that UConn connection.
Yeah.
They love playing at MSG. Kemba Walker, Jeremy Lamb, both those guys really stepped up to carry this team.
Yeah, and I walked to my radio spot at the Garden on Sunday night, and in the concourse they have all sorts of historic moments in Garden history up there, and of course the 6 overtime thriller now 9 years ago, which seems so hard to believe, back in 2009 against Syracuse. But yeah, which Kemba, by the way, you don't say this very often, came up short.
Yep.
Yeah, but they came up short in that game. But yeah, it's just that's home to them. I think specifically Kemba being from the Bronx, and he's just comfortable there. And he had been in a bit of a slump, I think, from a shooting standpoint. His 3-point shooting was off the charts the other night. It was great to see him break out. And Jeremy Lamb is just, it's incredible the way he's playing right now because his 3-point shooting is good. It's not great, it's good, but he's affecting the game in other ways because he's getting to the free throw line with regularity, and he's finishing through some contact. He's hitting tough shots, and he's just finding spots in the defense, getting near the basket and just exploiting teams, and it's fun to watch because that's really never been a consistent part of his game before this season.
And fans, we tend to focus on the offensive parts of the game. Those are the flashy parts, the numbers, the dunks, the points, everything like that. The thing I really like about Jeremy is how aggressively he's been going to the rim, and grabbing rebounds. Is that a part of his game that you're seeing evolve as well?
Yeah, I was looking at some of the numbers yesterday because I think anecdotally I was thinking that to myself, it seems like Jeremy's getting to the basket a lot more, right? And the numbers back it up. You go back to last year, which he was good in the mid-range, not great. This year he's on pace to average almost 60 more shots in the paint. And then he's on pace to average almost 80 more shots in the restricted area. So that's right at the rim, right? And he's shooting 47.1% from the field in the paint. It's 5th best among guards in the NBA who have taken at least 50 of those shots. So not only is he doing it, he's doing it a lot. He's doing it efficiently, which is something we said about his former UConn teammate Kemba Walker a lot. So Jeremy deserves a lot of credit, I think.
Yeah, he's been absolutely phenomenal. Another couple guys who have stepped up over the course of the last few days since the last Coaches Show. We've seen Malik Monk really step in and become a factor, and Nick Batum starting to kind of cement himself again.
Yeah, Nick had a virtuoso performance, and you could tell from Jump Street Wednesday night in Minneapolis against the Wolves, which was a loss, okay? But we'll talk to Coach about that because I think that was a turning point. Honestly, I think the Hornets got back to basics, figured out, oh, this is what it feels like to play Hornets basketball. So came up short, but it was a 1-possession game going into the final 8 minutes of that one on Wednesday night. But Nick came out aggressive. He was attacking, getting to the rim, setting up his teammates, but he was looking for his shot too. And I was looking this up because he had 18 points, 9 rebounds, 8 assists. And I was trying to find, okay, since Nick has become a Hornet, and this is now his 4th season in a Hornet uniform, when he has 18 and 8, what's the Hornets record? It's a 52 win pace. That's how good the Hornets have been. 14 and 8 overall throughout his career when he gets 18 points and 8 assists. That tells you what his aggressiveness does for the Hornets, right? So you saw that, and even though he only had 4 points the other night against the Knicks, you still saw his aggressiveness. You saw him attacking. You saw him setting up teammates. There's just got to be more of that from Nick. He's been challenged by Coach, and I think he's answered the bell. And I think Malik, as we've seen, he's still borderline a rookie. He's a young guy. He didn't play in all 82 games last year. He's 20 going on 21 this season. He's still finding his way, and I think when he feels that comfort level and the game come to him, he's deadly out there, and I think he's put two good games together back-to-back, and the Hornets wins too.
Yeah, watching that Minnesota game, to hear Nick get interviewed at halftime by Stephanie Reddy and say, Coach has challenged me to be more aggressive, that's another one of these things that we just love about Coach Borrego. He's not afraid to confront a guy and say, this is what I need from you.
Well, and I think, if you'd say, where does that come from? We could ask him that. I would venture to guess it's probably a lot of Greg Popovich, right, which is he's not afraid to go to the end of his bench on a night where maybe he doesn't have something he's looking for and see if he can insert somebody into the lineup and they can provide it. And I think JB has taken some of those influences from Coach Pop, where I expect all of you to contribute. And you might not be a starter, you might be the 14th or 15th guy on our roster, but everybody plays a role, and I need you to play that role. And he holds those guys accountable. And I think that's what players really can relate to and respect in the NBA is, hey, coach all those guys the same. If you're going to coach one guy hard, coach me hard too, coach him hard too, and JB's done that, and I think that's why he commands that respect in the locker room right now.
Well, those have been Chris's takes. These are my takes, but we're going to get to what we all know you're here for. You want to hear Coach's takes. We'll be right back with head coach James Borrego.
When you need to get to the game, but your gas light threatens to keep you on the sidelines, pull up to Exxon or Mobil to score savings courtesy of Exxon and Mobil Rewards Plus. It's easy to earn points. Swipe your card, enter your phone number, or pay with the Exxon Mobil Speed Pass Plus app and earn points automatically on every fill-up. Hugo earns points on every gallon. Then he cashes them in to save on snacks or his next fill-up. Sign up for Exxon and Mobil Rewards Plus and start scoring savings today.
Welcome back to the Hornets.com Coaches Show. I'm Matt Rachinski, joined by head coach James Borrego. Coach, welcome back to the Coaches Show. We're glad to have you.
Thanks for having me.
You're coming off two big wins. Just kind of talk about where the team is at right now and how big those wins were for this squad.
Well, we were banged up there for a bit. We had, a couple weeks ago had a couple good wins against Milwaukee and Atlanta, and then the injury bug hit us, and every team goes through it, and we're no exception. We had a couple guys go down, and it disrupted us. Didn't play as well as we'd like in that stretch, but I thought we were still getting better. Even that Minnesota game, I thought we were getting better. I really felt like we were making progress, and I think we saw it in those next two games against Denver, and then obviously last game against New York. I thought we played fairly well for 48 minutes. So I think we're getting better every day. I really do. I feel like each game we're learning something new about our group, our team. Our practices have been spirited, solid. Our identity is becoming more and more solidified. So I like where we're at.
And you go back to those last two wins. I think on Friday you and I had talked about this going into the game on Sunday, but you actually got outscored in 3 out of 4 quarters against Denver, as top team in the West. And it's hard to win those games, generally speaking, in the NBA, but you did it because you won some pretty important segments of the game, and I think you did that again on Sunday, where it was a 3-point game going to the second against the Knicks, and then you guys had a big flurry right out of the gates. I think it was a 9-2 run to open up the second quarter. They tried to claw back in. You had a flurry again before the half, and then you opened up the third quarter on a 16-2 run, and I think that showed some progress from your team as well.
Yeah, I think we're trying to respond. I think we're becoming more resilient that way. We can't allow those, like we saw in that Minnesota game, for a 20-point run to happen. If they make a 4-0, 6-0 run, okay, we deal with it, we move on, and we get better. And I think we saw that in the second quarter. We built some momentum, made some shots. Our defense really picked up. I give our second unit a lot of credit. They helped build that lead a tremendous amount. So, yeah, I think we have a bounce-back spirit. I don't love that we lost 3 quarters, but we won the game. We've had it the reverse. We've won 3 quarters and we've actually lost games. So I think we're getting better end of game, fourth quarter execution. I think we saw that in the Denver game. And then even the New York game, when they made a run, we responded and closed out that game the right way.
We've really seen with this Hornets team, they have a propensity to really step up to the level of opponent. Did it again against Denver. You guys play these great teams in the league really close. How good is that to see from this squad?
Well, it's a positive sign. You want to play your best basketball against those best teams, but we can't take these other teams for granted. And I think at times that's been one of our issues this season. But I think that New York game was an example of us, maturing and growing as a team. We've had some tough losses on the road against some teams that may not be up in that top tier, and we got to handle those games. Those are very important. At the end of the day, they all count the same. All 82, they all count them up. So, but I like the way our our group responds when the challenge is there, they're up for it. And we just got to create that challenge every night. I think that's my job as a coach, is to create that sort of challenge no matter who we're playing. And, same thing tomorrow night. We got a big game against a good team coming in, a team that we're competing, to get to the playoffs with. And but I believe our guys are responding the right way.
And I think when you go back to these last two games, especially against a team like Denver on Friday night, where they really want to pound the ball down low to Jokic and let him facilitate, and you guys did a good job denying those entry passes to him, I thought, and fueling your transition offense. And I thought, again, you kind of did the same thing with Cantor on Sunday and against the Knicks. You allowed your defense to kind of be the aggressive part of your game, and it fueled your offense to wins in both of those.
Yeah, I think, one of our best offenses, as you've said and you've seen, is playing off our defense. When we're aggressive, when we're in passing lanes, when we're creating turnovers or deflections, it really generates offense for us. We believe our best offense is our defense, that we can generate fast breaks and pace off of that. When we're getting stops, we're a pretty good offense. And I think you saw that in the New York game, the Denver game. When we got stops, we got out and ran. But it takes effort, to get those stops. And it takes our group a lot of effort. We don't have one guy down there just, digging in and blocking up and swarming the paint. We're doing it as a collective unit. And MKG's out there, Miles is out there doing it, Cody's doing a great job, Frank's, giving us everything he can down low. So that group together is just really solidifying the paint for us. We've become a much better paint defensive team. If we have that, we can generate offense, get stops, and now play with pace.
How important was it to get the ship kind of righted and headed the right way as you head into the longest homestand that this team is going to have all season long starting tomorrow night?
Well, you always want to build momentum. I think we built that these last couple games, and we got to continue that. We can't be satisfied with getting 2 wins. We got to get hungry and greedy, and you do that with your daily habits. And I think that's what we're talking about right now. We didn't come in today and rest on our win against New York. We really looked at what we did well in that game, what we could do better, and we look forward to tomorrow night. I think these guys are hungry to get after it. They want to get another win. They want to get another home win. They want to build more momentum. And I think once it starts to go, you start to feel it. And I've been around teams like this. Like you just, in San Antonio, we put together a number of streaks, and it started with 1 game, and it became 2 and 3 and 4. But our group can't be satisfied with those 2 wins. We got to be hungry and go get a 3rd one.
So Marvin left for only a game. We thought it might be a little bit longer than that. He comes back in, and I mean, he's. You speak of resiliency. Marvin, I think, is the epitome of that for this team and how well he's playing. But I also think it's interesting how it's kind of put everybody back into maybe their more natural position. And I look at a guy like Miles, and I think you've put those two out on the court at times together, and they both seem to shine. I don't know if it's their aggressiveness, their physicality, their athletic ability. But what are you seeing with Miles? Because you've talked about his positional versatility, and I think the 4 maybe down the road is a spot he can play, but right now at the small forward spot, he seems to be shining for you.
He's doing great. I mean, he's getting better. He gives us a lot of versatility, and watching the film these last couple games or a couple days, it's shining even more. Especially with MKG out there, Miles, you got Marvin out there. There's a very active group. I think Malik's playing well. He's been very aggressive defensively, much more competitive that way. So that young group together can generate a lot for us on both ends of the floor. And I think we saw that in that second quarter, or maybe end of the first. The block shot by MKG and then the block shot by Miles, 2 big possessions that generated momentum plays for us, and those momentum plays led us into a big quarter. So those two, like we talked about this morning in the film session, they feed off each other. They're like 2 pit bulls out there just trying to create havoc out there, and he's growing right before our eyes, but we need him to stay hungry, stay aggressive on both ends of the floor.
Speaking of aggressive, another guy you challenged was a veteran in Nick Batum to be more aggressive, and he's come out and done that the last couple games. Have you liked what you've seen from Nick?
Yeah, he's done well. I mean, that Minnesota game was probably the start of it. Came out very aggressive, and then I think he followed it up in Denver. I mean, and he did it on both ends of the floor. He was guarding Jamal Murray for a bulk of that game. Their best player, or one of their best players, took the challenge and guarded him. Then we started him on Hardaway the other night. He did a great job there. So it starts for Nick on the defensive end, giving him a challenge, and he's risen to the challenge every single night. Then offensively, he's been much more aggressive, shooting the shot when it's there, driving it, kicking it, moving it, playing with more purpose and more aggression. and that can't stop. You know, he's got to keep building on this, and I expect him to even be more aggressive tomorrow night.
One of the guys, we spent a lot of time talking about him, but I tried to dig into some of the numbers to figure out what exactly is Jeremy Lamb doing right now. And he's on pace to just completely blow out of the water his shots in the paint, at the rim compared to last year. Have you spoken specifically to him about that part of the game, about being more aggressive and getting downhill? Because he's certainly amped that up in his game, and he's having ridiculous success. I think he's 5th in the NBA among guards in shots in the paint. So not only is he getting there, but he's scoring at a high clip when he's doing it. What are those conversations like with Jeremy with that part of his game?
Well, we felt like we needed another body to get to the rim and create for us. And, one thing we challenged him on is really attacking the paint, getting to the rim. He has length, he has size, he has a good feel down there. He can get to the free throw line. And to Jeremy's credit, if you tell him one thing, he's going to do it. He's going to get it done. And we've challenged him on the defensive end. He's competing in that area. Offensively, we wanted him to get downhill, get to the rim, drive it, not settle, and shoot the 3-ball. And he's done both. He's shooting it well. So he deserves a lot of credit. And I didn't know he'd get here this quickly. But we need every drive he can get to the rim, we need that one. Every 3-ball he can knock down, we need that one. So he's had a tremendous year, and hopefully he's only getting better from here.
Well, you guys were on the road. Obviously, Snowmageddon hit Charlotte over here.
Oh, yeah.
All this snow got dumped on us. I got to ask you, though, coming from San Antonio, you did the stint in Orlando, never any of those northern teams. How often do you land and have to deal with snow on your car before you get home in the morning?
I know. I had to find an old shoebox I had on my car and use that to get the snow off so I could get home, and I was not prepared for that. But my kids saw snow for the first time last year in San Antonio. We actually had snow in San Antonio for my first time, being in San Antonio. We got a little snow last year, so they got a taste of it. But I'm thrilled for them, more than for me. I've been around snow a little bit. Growing up in Albuquerque, we get a couple hits of snow every year. But we had a lot of fun last year in San Antonio in the snow, and then my kids had a blast. These last couple days playing in that snow. But I just definitely wasn't ready. I don't know if the city was. Was the
I don't
city
think
ready?
we're ever ready.
Okay. I guess that's a good thing. You're not shoveling snow all winter.
There's a lot to do, putting out on all that snow or salt and ice and all that kind of stuff to get that ice picked up.
I know Chris wasn't doing any snow shoveling.
No, I don't think.
All we got was rain in Union County. Okay, that's why you got to step out to the suburbs a little bit.
So you didn't get to build a snowman?
We didn't get any of that stuff. We just get a little rain.
Oh. Little rain, not bad.
Well, thanks very much for joining us, Coach. We definitely appreciate it. We'll catch up with you again next week.
Sounds
5 home games coming up this week. Make sure you get out there, Hornets fans. A big homestand for the Hornets coming up. We'll catch up with JB next week.
Go Hornets!
Welcome back to the Hornets.com Coaches Show, joined by Chris Kroger. Had a great time talking to Coach, but let's wrap things up as we head into the rest of the week. We've got 3 great home games coming up, 5-game homestand right now.
Biggest homestand of the year, and the schedule gets pretty road heavy when you get into January and February, and so it feels like a pivotal stretch, and it feels like it because it is, quite honestly. And I think if you look at where the schedule is set up here, all these games have meaningful implications. You can take, because there's you're talking 4 opponents for 5 games. Well, open and close with Detroit. But 4 of these 5 games, the Hornets can secure the season series. Now, you might say 2 of them, Cleveland and New York, they don't look like playoff teams. Doesn't matter. You want to do that. Right. And you could do it against Detroit, taking 3 out of 4 if you were able to sweep the open and close of this homestand. And think of this with Detroit, already up a game on them. You beat them in Detroit. At least 1 win secures that neither team can have the head-to-head tiebreaker, and the Hornets and Pistons both look like playoff teams right now. They're both on the right side of the playoff cut line. And as we enter today, Detroit a half game up on the Hornets for 6th in the East. So these are big games for obvious reasons, and I think they're all winnable. The only team that's a team over 500, the Lakers at 17-10, maybe an early surprise in the West. They're 4th out on the Western Conference, but LeBron's not in the East anymore, and I think this feels like a game, maybe for the first time in a long time, where, you know what, I think we can get LeBron and we can trip up the Lakers here. So huge homestand, obviously.
We've looked at the schedule and we've said, oh, schedule makers were tough to us here. How much of a benefit is it for the Hornets knowing they're going to be taking on this Pistons team 2 times in 5 games?
I think big. And you think going into this, the Hornets have now won, by my count, I think it's 3 in a row against Detroit. They took the season series against the Pistons last year, and they played really well in Detroit. You know, Andre Drummond and Blake Griffin got frustrated in that game, and those are the 2 focal points for Detroit. Detroit, weird team too. They're super streaky. You look at Detroit, they started 0-4, they then won, I believe it was 5 in a row, and then they've been on a bit of a backslide. Then they went and won 9 of the next 11, and now they've dropped 5 in a row again. So Detroit's been up and down, but they've got talent, and so we're going to see a big game here with big implications against the Pistons, and I think the Hornets are up to that challenge.
Big game on Wednesday against the Pistons. Big weekend coming in, starting on Friday with Muggsy Bogues night here against the New York Knicks. We've had the 30th anniversary celebration, brought in the 30th anniversary team. This is the first of a host of different nights that we're going to be having this year with the bobblehead, Muggsy Bogues bobblehead. Make sure you get here early if you're getting tickets so you can grab one of those. But Muggsy Bogues, and what has he meant to this franchise in order for them to honor him like this?
Well, it's crazy because Muggs is on the podcast, so we're doing a little shameless self-promotion here. You can check him out on Courtside Seats this week. But we were talking about it with Muggs. I said, Muggs, like, how crazy is this that you and Dell was the first expansion pick in team history in the expansion draft. Muggsy was 3rd. I think Dave Hoppin was 2nd, if my memory serves me correct. So I said, how crazy is it that you, 2 of the top 3 expansion picks in team history, would go on to be 1 and 2 in games played? That doesn't happen. There's no precedent for that. And think about how Dell and Muggsy are linked at the hip. They went on to play a couple years together in Toronto, too, for the Raptors after they left Charlotte. So it's just wild what he means. I think he was the early face of the franchise, the way Kemba is now, what he represented, the ultimate underdog story at 5'3". To this day, still the shortest player in NBA history. And he was so tenacious. He was so aggressive. The way he played on both ends of the court, he'd find those spots in the defense. Just like Kemba has used his height, where people would say it's a disadvantage, he's used it as an advantage. Muggsy was the same guy to do that as well, because he could get underneath teams, right? Literally, in their defense, he could manipulate their defense, get underneath them. He was so great at setting up his teammates for getting quality looks, and then on the defensive end, he would guard anybody. And you would see him at times, there were moments, he'd be on MJ, he'd be on Patrick Ewing, he'd guard anybody he needed to guard, and he'd attack on defense. And he was so good at stealing the basketball. Led the NBA a couple of years in steals, still the all-time steals leader in Hornets history, and he had such anticipation of when that basketball was going to be in the air, between the court and the hand, and it would start the break. And Muggsy, I can't think of a player that was more fun to watch on the break than Muggsy Bogues, actually.
I think that's why kids and everybody just kind of was drawn to Muggsy Bogues. So great tickets still available for Friday night against the Knicks. Get out here. Make sure you get a chance to see Muggsy on Muggsy Bogues night. But then Saturday, you alluded to it earlier, we've got that guy, King James, coming in wearing different colors, and he'll be wearing purple and gold with the Lakers. Seats not as easily available for that one right now. You guys might have to hop on Hornets.com. We've got some great luxury seats that are still available, because those single tickets, they're tough to get at this point in time. If you're trying to grab them, they might be tough. But get a crew together, try and get some luxury tickets. Maybe you can try out the new flight deck. There's a nice little flight deck that's going on just above the court for people to watch.
I'm still angling to try to call a game from flight deck before the year's over. Maybe they'll let me set up in the end zone one of these games in the arena, and I can call a game from flight deck.
I say let's do it. We'll see if we can get that set up for Chris. But for LeBron, he always poses problems for any Charlotte team. Back when we were the Bobcats, when we were the Hornets. Anytime this team squares off against LeBron James, it proves to be difficult. What's going to be the key to beating this Lakers team?
Well, I think, as it always is, you say LeBron's going to get his, right? So don't allow him to get downhill. Easier said than done, but don't allow him to get downhill and start setting up his teammates, right? And I think for the first time in a long time, he's got a group of guys around him where maybe do you dare them to make shots? Do you completely blitz LeBron in every way you possibly could and say, you know what, we're going to actually not let you go off tonight. We're gonna take the field essentially and say that it's going to be better to slow you down. So I'll be fascinated, honestly. I think you talk about a cast of characters. This is why LeBron's in the MVP race. They're 17-10 in the West, and I think this is probably the weirdest group of players fitting around LeBron that he's seen throughout his career to this point. So I'm be fascinated. I don't know the game plan.
Right.
I don't. I think in years past you'd say, you know what, we're going to just try and stay home, stay contained, and see what we can do. But this might be a game where almost you dare some of these pieces around LeBron, the Lance Stevensons, the Lonzo Balls, the JaVale McGee's of the world. Mm-hmm. I think maybe you almost dare them to beat you. So I'll be fascinated to see what Coach draws up.
What we know is 3 great games coming up this week. 5 in total over the course of the next 2 weeks. Make sure you get out to Spectrum Center. Great tickets still available. We all hope to see you there. For head coach James Borrego, for Chris Kroger, I'm Matt Rochinski from Hornets.com.